Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam to all the PGuru audience. I always maintain that sending what you call addressing the PGuru audience is a very pleasurable thing because they are erudite and they also provide very meaningful comments. Couple of them are, of course, useless and other thing. And most important is New Year greetings to all of you. Let it bring a lot of cheers and lot of good news to all of you and wishes. And most of you may be much younger than me, so my blessings also. So today, I would also like to thank Sri Iyer for providing me this opportunity. Today we will take up the topic of this economy of India 2023. And already so many people have chewed this, so many people have expressed that. And it is becoming a very bipartisan type of not so rational type of a discussion. If you say that economy is doing well, immediately you are told you are goody media or you are a buck or you are a person who need not be taken. Similarly, on the other side, economy is not doing well, then you are anti-India, you are unpatriotic, and all the things. Like recently, for instance, Raghuram Rajan, who was the earlier governor of the Reserve Bank as well as the chief economic advisor, he has occupied a lot of posts actually. He's not an economist, incidentally. That's a separate issue. He has come from the business background, business education background. Anyhow, he suddenly, I do not know what happened. He joined this Rahul Yatra also, this Bharat Jodo Yatra. Not only that, he gave some interview. He told our growth rate will not exceed 5%. Or he's extremely pessimistic. I do not know on what basis he made that assertion. According to me, we will easily have anything like 7%, 6.5 to 7%. There is no, almost all the major agencies also agree with this because our situation is much better compared to many of the global countries. Last couple of years, let's take the important thing. We have been growing much better than most of the countries in the world. Incidentally, only India and China are the two countries which are growing in the world today, not many other countries. And India is doing much better in the last 2 years. This year also, China is having its own difficulties. Let's wait and see. So I think reaching 7% is not going to be a positively 6.5 and maybe 7%. There's no need to be extremely pessimistic or anything. The fact that we are doing well. Couple of observation. 100 billion US dollar is the foreign inflow for us from remittances. Our NRIs, maybe numbering 45 or 40, 45 million abroad is a huge source of strength for us. 100 billion is, and the proportion coming from Middle East is lesser nowadays. Much more is coming from Europe and the US and other. More, less proportion, and of course, Middle East is also having its own economic issues, and incremental jobs are not much there in the Middle East, and they are a single product company type of thing. Importance of oil is coming down. One doesn't know after 10 years what will happen. Many are switching to electricity, and then other modes like your solar and various other alternatives. They also know about it. Anyhow, 100 billion, 1000 million is 1 billion. And the export of software and allied activities is 120, 110, 120 billion. So these two are major pillars of strength for us in terms of earning. Of course, we are spending something like 80 billion in educating our kids abroad. There is a fascination too. And when the Ukraine war started only, I realized that there are around 50,000 people studying there. All sorts of countries, our kids go and study. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. Somebody told me about Madagascar. I can imagine. And even in China, we have some 40, 50,000 people studying. Anyhow, what they study, quality, another thing, we are not getting into it. Primarily, I am talking, we are spending something like 80 billion. So we are earning well in terms of our remittance as well as in terms of our software exports market. Other than that, we are also number one in milk and milk products. We also do very well in terms of our rice, wheat, and dal, and other thing. Only thing is the consuming oil, not the petrol oil. I am talking about the other oil, edible oil. I think we should significantly increase and reduce our import content. Overall, if you look at it, very interestingly, in the past, agriculture was not growing much. It was growing around 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%. But very interestingly, during this COVID time, agriculture has done much better actually. Some years it has crossed even 3%. And it is looking up. Agriculture is doing very well, and its contribution is also increasing significantly. We are now today in the world on a purchasing power parity, what is called PPP basis. China is number one, US is number two, and India is number three. Japan is number four. Purchasing power parity means comparison of the GDP of countries become difficult because of purchasing power differences. Like for instance, I earn 50,000 rupee in India. My niece is earning $50,000 in US. Both are 50,000. Doesn't mean we are same. Our purchasing powers are different between, say, non-tradable labor. For instance, I can hire a servant maid in India for 5 to 6,000 rupees per month for sweeping the floor, cleaning the vessels, and all that thing. There, she has to pay per hour something like $45 to $50. $50 at 80 rupees is around 4,000 rupees. So what I pay annual monthly, she has to pay per hour. So the purchasing power is not similar, totally different. But in other activity like your food items, milk, egg, vegetables, and chicken, and all these things, in India, a middle class spends around 60% of their income. Whereas in US, it will be around 12 to 15% only. Proportion spend. This is what in the economics called Engel's curve. We are on this side of the curve. And point I want to stress is, if you adjust for purchasing power, and IMF, World Bank, they have indicators how to adjust for it. We are number three. On rupee term, or rather dollar term, if you take it, number one is of course US, number two is China, number three is what one can call Japan, number four is India. Earlier number four used to be Britain, and now it is number five was India, and we have marginally increased. But dollar term, US is around $21 trillion. Trillion is 1,000 billion, and 1 billion is 1,000 million. Use your calculator and try to figure it out. And 10 lakh is 1 million, and 10 million is 1 crore. And if you want to compare between crore and point I want to stress is, US is 21 trillion. China is 18, 19 trillion. China is in another 2-3 years, it is expected to reach US actually, even cross, even in nominal term. So this is, they are around 19 now. We are around 3 trillion, reaching 3 trillion. We are not really very big, or even though we could claim to be third, we are only 3 trillion, and we are expecting to become 5 trillion. So our economy is recognized as a growing economy, and position wise we are not in very bad position or anything. We are doing much better than most of the European countries, EU countries, in terms of all these are on gross term, not on per capita basis. Kindly note, per capita basis, if you take China's population, India population, and other thing, we will be much smaller and other thing. But these are on a total basis. So that is something which we should. So if you are growing at around 7%. Maybe later we should try to grow at 10 to 12%, which will not be difficult for us to reach 5 trillion. This is something very, very interesting and important. And agriculture is doing very fine. And even though the government withdrew the agriculture reforms which it brought, in practice, many of them are taking place. For instance, this forward trade is already taking place in many of the flowers, chicken, and this egg, various places in the country. Business and industry is uh, joining, and contract farming is becoming more and more popular. Smaller ones are very difficult, half acre and 1 acre fellows are all finding it very tough to survive in terms of input cost, in terms of various other type of cost. So contract farming is becoming a popular avenue which will increase our productivity. So what should government do? Government can facilitate in the following fashion. One, of course, is some of the big fish in agriculture should be taxed. At least those who earn net income more than 1 crore per annum should be focused. This is very important. And incidentally, agriculture tax is in the hands of state governments under law, not central government. Of course, I do not know how many state governments will gather courage to tax there, because it's a political and it's a related to appeasement and other. That is something. But proportion is very less increasingly. The contribution of agriculture is only 15% increasingly, and another 20% comes from government, state government, central government, and various other type of government activities, corporation. So 20 plus this 15 is 35, and there were companies, what is called big companies like your Tata, Birla, Ambani, Adani, and various other companies, corporate sector it is called, organized sector it is called. It would be of the order of some 12 to 15. So if you add all the three, 20 plus 15 plus 15, 50. The remaining 50 comes from what are the non-corporate partnership, proprietorship firms, small and medium businesses and other. In wholesale trade, retail trade, two truck operators, some private omnibus operators, restaurant, and various other type of fitter, plumber, carpenter, and all these constitute 50%. The government can facilitate their growth. Of course, even today, huge portion, something like 60% of them is borrowing from their own community, their own caste, under various type of arrangement. So, bank financing may be around 30 to 35% only. So, one is the financing, because the local borrowing and other thing by these small businesses may cost them a bomb actually. It's not going to be of the bank cost or anything. More important is the ease of doing business. The local level corruption is phenomenal. It's not very easy to, for instance, even a small piece of land, if you want to register anywhere in the country today, you have to pay a bribe to the registrar of the respective state or something. Whether it is bought by the prime minister or finance minister, it doesn't matter. They would. Similarly for water connection, similarly for RTO office, similarly for power connection. The level of corruption is so much that also adds to the inflation. Let's say pushcart vendor is every day has to pay some 30-40 rupees to the cop. Obviously, he or she will have to add it to the cost of selling the all over, this potato or onion or anything. So corruption adds to the cost. Corruption is one level of contribution to the cost or inflation. So the government, how to reduce it? Very simple. Lot of these regulations are meant to create bribery. Let me put it very bluntly. And many of them can be scrapped. Food and Adulteration Act, what big deal it is nowadays. What I mean to say is enlightened self-interest will make the people who manufacture food to be careful. If somebody eats even the pani puri from a vendor and then falls ill or something, vomits or something, or some next day he won't have business. Word of mouth, it will spread like anything. And these days, your selfie and the girl will immediately take a picture of the cockroach and the dosa and then put it into the net. So what I mean to say is, lot of these regulations, Shops and Establishment Act, are not required at all. Many of them, and many states, I tell you, if you follow Shops and Establishment Act, you have to close down 95% of the shops because none of them follow the shops. Shops are supposed to not have rats or sunshine should be there. They should have surroundings clean. All that is not in practice. So many of these regulations can be scrapped. No point in having discussion in Delhi with all the samosa on tea and other thing. Ease of doing business is at the lowest level. Trade license, another racket. Trade license may be 5,000, but he or she has to pay some 1 lakh to get the trade license. So this is another annual. So technology has helped in some places, like your railways, for instance. Now it is software driven. No need to bribe a TTE or something. And even in passport offices, technology has facilitated. But beyond that, large areas are full of retail corruption. That is the biggest headache for small businesses. So the government can start dismantling wholesale so many type of regulations and other things. The second thing government can do is up to say 10 crore or 20 crore, they can exempt them from paying any GST. Income tax they have to enlarge. Very important. The base has to be increased. Quite a number of people with 1 crore income and other thing are not covered, as I told in the case of agriculture income, as well as in the case of small and medium businesses. Quite a number of them are not covered. According to me, approximately 30% is not covered even today. Even though the coverage is increasing in terms of lot of information being gathered and other thing. And earlier it used to be 50-50 in land registration, white and black. I'm told now it has come down. 80-20 and 70-30 people are talking about. But still, there is a big amount of issue in terms of this corruption. We should be cautious. Another thing which can be done is about the issue of this direct taxes on senior citizens. According to me, all those above 60 can be exempt from taxes, except those who earn, let's say, 50 lakh per annum or something. Because what is happening is so much focus in on small fellows. Some fellow has not paid 1,500 rupee tax, then the income tax sends a notice, and this fellow respond, and it goes on. And I would call it a harassment. I think they should focus on bigger fish. They should focus on Malaya. They should focus on 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤. Those are the people whom they should, on all the cinema and sports and other type of people. And why, bother about these small fellows? There is a report telling that they would increase the income tax exemption to 5 lakh. 5 lakh is nothing these days. 5 lakh is nothing these days because plumber or electrician visiting home in many of the metropolitan towns, they charge you 500 to 800 rupees. My plumber, he says he earns something like 30 to 40,000 per month. Demand is so high, and he has a mobile, so he can go. Unlike the earlier time where people have to reach him and then register in his book, and he will come in the afternoon for a round and then go. Today it is not like that. 24 hours is on alert, is available, and the cost has also gone up. And if he is earning something like 40,000 per month, this is something like 5 lakh. It's not and the various other categories are also. So easily one can think in terms of increasing the slab to 10 lakh minimum. And all senior citizens can be exempt, except those who earn above 50 lakh in the form of dividend income or in the form of any other type of. What I want to say is the aim of the government should be to enlarge the scope of coverage and lesser harassment. That will give a big boost to the economy. That is what is now required. We have to reach the next stage of the economy, and some 40-45 crores are there in the middle class. They have to be, given a enthusiastic thing. Our economy is doing well, I can tell you, even though some of them will immediately say I belong to the category of appeasement, and I don't belong to any category. Only one word of caution is the fiscal deficit, which is largest among the G20 countries in India, and we should be very cautious about it. Many of the state governments are behaving very childish. Some of them are telling we will go back to the old pension scheme like this Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, which is the most dangerous type of thing. It will completely liquidate the state governments. Already many of the state governments are spending 70% of their income in the form of salary, pension, interest and other things. So going back to the old pension scheme, I think the center should resist and clearly tell they are not going to come out in order to pull them out of this type of a obnoxious type of a what one can call reversal of a good decision. Anyhow, fiscal deficit is something which I think is a cause for concern, and I'm sure government is taking steps instead of printing more and more notes or anything. That is not going to be the solution, and so the tax base has to be increased. On that note to opinion, state governments has to collect agriculture income tax on very rich agriculturists, those who are earning above 1 crore or something. Definitely. And third is exempt these senior citizens from paying any type of a tax. Last, of course, I would say, since I am a biased person in that, the veterinary amount you spend on dogs should also be included in exemption for medical treatment. Because now it's relatively, two expenses are very high in India. One is for babies or toddlers and kids. Any price they quote you by it, nobody wants to object to the mother telling that let's get this, and they outgrow it in a matter of weeks, leave alone months. That is one. Second is the dogs. The medical expenses for dogs and they are all phenomenally high. So that can also be included as a positive attitude. Not necessarily dogs. You can include dogs, cats, and other type of domesticated. And it will also perhaps incentivize quite a number of these people to adopt street dogs and other things. And veterinary doctors are, people say that can you rely on their bills, and I will ask the counter question, can you rely on the bills of the regular doctors? All these type of arguments won't help. So that is one area. I am of course towards dogs. So I would say on an average, we are doing well. We have to consolidate our position. We have to increase our productivity. We have to reduce our dependence on this agriculture being done by this quarter acre and half acre people and other thing. And we have to enlarge the base of the tax, and role of government should be minimized. This is the most important thing. And the government is not a solution. Let me make it very, very clear. All government activity is not going to help. They did a good decision in offloading some of these, like your Air India and other thing. There are so many. In the 50s, it was a required type of a thing, because our Indian capitalists were not large and able to generate much funds from the market. Today, there are enough number of millionaire capitalists have come. And last but not least is there is a huge amount of money kept in the illicit tax havens by Indians. Quite a long time before onwards, it has been accumulated, and there is a need to. It could be 1.5 to 2 trillion, according to my estimate. And I think the government should take very serious steps to bring back the amount, not the persons who is interested in whether Choksi comes or Malaya comes, or it doesn't matter. But the dollar, which is kept hidden there, should be brought back. And so many other countries have done that actually. Philippines have done it, Peru has done it, and so many other countries have done it. So it's not Nigeria has done it. So same way. So in conclusion, I would say 23 is going to be a reasonably a good year for our economy. I'm not talking about global economy or anything. Our economy, unless we bungle it up phenomenally, or unless the what are called the Andolan GVs try to destabilize the whole country and create chaos. Otherwise, I think we can be definite reaching 6.5 to 7% growth rate, which is one of the highest growth rate in the world is going to be for the period 23. And later on, I think we should build upon it actually. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.